Over the past year, I've survived over 2,000 days in my Minecraft Hardcore Forever world. So today we're going to be surviving an additional 1,000 days in Hardcore Minecraft. Last episode, we finished building the interior of our villager trading hall. And even though having a trading hall is a pretty significant milestone in a hardcore series, we've kind of reached another bottleneck here in our world. You see, I want to start building much bigger farms to kind of automate a lot of these different processes, so we're going to need a way to get bulk iron, which means today we are heading out to find the perfect location for an iron farm. Fortunately, before this video began, I spent a little bit of time looking around for the biome I wanted, and this time I actually want some sort of snowy plains. And even more lucky for us, this one seems to be absolutely massive. And not only that, but there's some kind of snowy taiga village right nearby, so we'll have easy transportation for all of the villagers. I could use the area for villager breeding we have in the trading hall, but honestly, I think it might be too far away, and we haven't updated to 1.21.6 yet, so we don't have any happy gas. There is also this pretty cool looking mountain over here, and I actually think I'd like to build in this area, especially because of the way it looks over this frozen ocean here. That's so cool. But the only problem is I don't actually like the mountain. So we're gonna remove the mountain. So I guess the best way to start this process would be to build up a beacon on the top of said mountain right here, switch it over to haste, and then begin the very tedious process of Control-Alt deleting this absolutely huge mound of dirt and stone. Alright, so the main portion of the mountain has been removed, and this entire chest monster is filled with nothing but stone and cobblestone and dirt and grass and snow blocks. Of course, there's, a couple of flowers mixed in the bunch, some iron and some coal, but yeah, most of this is just stone and cobblestone, which is absolutely insane. But the good thing is that we won't need any of those blocks for a very long time going forward. And having been working on this thing for hours and hours and hours, I am starting to think I may have bitten off more than I can chew, but I mean, we're locked in now, so it is time to get started on taking down the other portion of this absolutely massive mountain. Alright, well that was a lot more work than I'm willing to admit, and I'm really tired, so I'm taking a break and heading to bed. One day later, and we are ready to get back at it. And look at that, now we can see straight over to the frozen ocean, and that view is so cool from the mainland. Our epic mining montage also seems to have attracted a bit of an audience. Hi, Polly Bear! Anyways, I think we are actually going to be building this iron farm right in the middle of the plains biome here. But in order to actually get this thing running, we do need to collect all the supplies. So I'm gonna fly home real quick. And also, I know you guys are probably wondering, Incy, if you're building it in the middle of the plains biome, why did you just remove that mountain? Wasn't that a giant waste of time? And to that I say, don't worry about it. Greetings, stonemason villagers. How are we? They always seem to be piled up in this corner here. You guys do know you can get out, right? All right, at least one guy figured it out. And do we still have, yep, okay, we still have some mountain villagers. They can stay up there though. Anyways, we are in the mining district because we are going to tackle probably one of the most tedious blocks to get in this process, and that is actually obsidian. So we're gonna take some water down to the lava caves that we've been exploring, and we are going to start scooping up, I think, anywhere between 120 to 160 pieces of obsidian. I'm no longer looking at the material list, so I'm not actually sure the exact number, but Minecraft me got it done regardless, don't worry. But now that that's done, we're gonna quickly run just over to our mining area to collect some deep slate, because we need deep slate bricks. Well, we don't actually need deep slate bricks. They're kind of just like a block for the iron golems to spawn on. You can kind of replace these with whatever you want if you're going to build this farm along with me. I just think they look the best. And we'll just turn this cobble deep slate into polished deep slate and then into deep slate bricks. We'll also be demanding some deep slate tile slabs as well, so we'll grab those while we're down here. And then we are back up to the surface to start shearing some sheep. We're going to need some light gray wool because we're going to be using light gray carpets to kind of mask out some of the areas where we don't want iron golems to spawn. Then we're also going to be converting some of these sheep to red wool and collecting that because I want some red beds for all of the villagers to sleep in. It literally does not matter what color the beds are. I want them to be red because in the schematic I'm using they're red and it helps my brain connect the dots. Don't worry about it, it's fine. We're making them red. Now we'll just craft all of these guys up, and we actually need like a shulker box and a half of beds. I think this is the most beds I have ever seen in Minecraft. But anyways, another block that we're going to need is some black stained glass. So I'm gonna head out to the ocean here, jump in the water, and attempt to kill a bunch of squids to get their ink sacs. And you know, as I've been doing this, I've been thinking about it more and more. I've actually needed to use ink sacs in a lot of my builds, and I was wondering if you guys thought maybe it was worth building some kind of ink farm in the future. I don't know, I've never actually made one of those in survival before, but I tend to use darker color palettes a lot of the time, or at least I build dark highlights into my builds, so having constant access to black dye might actually be very useful. But now that we have all of that, we'll just smelt up some of this glass here, and I'm also actually going to need some soul torches this time around. Don't actually ask me why, I have no idea. The schematic I'm using just utilizes them instead of regular torches. Maybe it's just an aesthetic choice, but just to make sure everything runs properly, because this is a semi-complicated farm, I'm going to use every single block and make sure it's exactly the same. We'll also need a lever, and in addition to that, we're also going to need 14 vines, which luckily I have some of those left over from a few previous builds. And another thing we need is redstone dust, so we're going to fly home to the starter island, go in through our little pirate cove, down through our little mysterious tunnel, into the main room, and back through the back passage. I can't believe I've built all of this. I mean, this is a big build. Down into the actual storage room itself, and we'll grab a few stacks of redstone dust. Now, the next block I was actually going to need wasn't a block, it was an item. I needed slime balls for sticky pistons. So I flew out to my nearby swamp, but I wasn't having any luck getting slimes to spawn. In fact, it was so bad, I spent so much time looking for them, I actually had to fly home to my XP farm so I could repair my elytra, and then head back out to a completely different swamp to try to get some slimes to spawn there. But finally, after about 3 full Minecraft days of looking, we found some. And with that, the only other blocks we really needed were a few comparators and repeaters, which I already had in my redstone shulker box. So we flew back to the snowy plains to get started on building the actual farm. Now, for this build, I am actually going to be using the easy place mode in Lightmatica because there are certain blocks in here that require certain block states, and I don't want to risk messing that up. So using this auto place feature that Lightmatica has means I'll be able to place the blocks down in the correct state without worrying about screwing it all up. Now, if you guys want to build the same farm as me, this is a design by a user by the name of, and I kid you not, this is the person's actual name, Big Booty 17. But from what I've seen, despite the questionable name, this guy has managed to whip up a killer iron farm. So I'm really looking forward to see how this performs once it's done. But there we go, the overworld building portion of the farm is complete. I just quickly want to take a moment to appreciate the beauty of complementary reimagined shaders. I mean, look at this view of the Arctic night sky. But anyways, I'm also just going to take a moment to light up the ground here underneath the farm, that way we don't get any mob spawns. And now it is time to head into the Nether, because the killing chamber for these iron golems will actually be in the Nether. This design, if you couldn't somehow tell already, utilizes Nether portals. So I need to hopefully just clear out a big portion of this netherrack here. We actually got kind of lucky and this thing spawned above a lava lake, so we don't actually have a lot of terraforming to do here. We just have to make sure we have room to build the farm. Hopefully I can do this without falling in the lava. And then we're just headed back home to collect the rest of the supplies we'll need to finish the Nether portion of this build and complete the killing chamber and whatnot. Luckily, the first few blocks we needed were some redstone components that were already in my inventory. I quickly scooped up a dispenser, got myself another sticky piston. Of course, we made another lever to turn it on and off. And I also whipped up some chests and hoppers. We were also going to need a bit more glass, so I threw some sand in our furnaces. And after we collected the remaining essential blocks, we headed right back into the Nether to complete the build. Well, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, but everything seems to be in its place, so it's time to move on. Now, the first thing we need to do is whip up some name tags, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, I am not looking forward to this next part of the video. You see, this iron farm requires the use of pacified villagers, which means I'm gonna have to go out and find a pillager outpost that's semi near the farm, get some pillagers to spawn, trap them in boats, and then spend an eternity attempting to get them to break their crossbows by shooting at me. Normally, one way or another, when I'm at a boring part in my recording process, I'm able to find some sort of joy, but not this time. There's absolutely nothing about this. This is the worst. This might be top 10 worst Minecraft things ever. Okay, we got the first guy's bow to break, but the other guy, his has not broken yet, and I am getting really nervous because I'm just now noticing his is enchanted, which means there's the possibility that he has unbreaking on his crossbow. Also, if you're wondering the reason why I'm not holding up a shield to this guy, it's because this guy's crossbow also has piercing on it. So I think that's the enchantment. I have no idea. All I know is that whatever enchantment he has, his arrows go right through my shield and damage me anyway, so there's literally no point. In fact, you know what? I have been here with this guy for an hour and a half. I'm gonna kill him. We're gonna start over, and we're just gonna consider this a lesson learned. But alright, we got the new pillager. I wasted a name tag by doing this, but I think it was gonna be worth it. I can't take this for much longer. And if the crossbow is unenchanted, it's a guaranteed only like 22 minutes for the thing to break. And there we go. After hours and hours of doing this, we finally got both of the pillagers pacified. Now all that's left to do is transport them all the way over to the iron farm. Alright, we've got them over at the farm. Now we just need to figure out how to get them all the way up in those little chambers there. So what I think I'm going to do is try to build like a little staircase up to the top and connect it to the stasis chambers so they can just walk right in. Okay, so immediate problem. This guy does not want to walk up the staircase, and I'm not aware of any way to kind of attract them to us. It seems like now that he doesn't have a weapon, he's not following us around because he doesn't have anything to attack us with. So we're actually going to take the staircase down and try a different method. Going to try to build up a bubble elevator here. So we're literally just going to create a tube of cobblestone that goes up to the level we need it at. Then we'll build up some railing so he doesn't fall off, and we'll come in with a a water source block here at the top. I also already placed down a piece of soul sand and collected some kelp, so now we'll just take that kelp from the bottom all the way to the top to transform all the flowing water into water source blocks. Then we'll just push our guy here and send him straight up. There he goes. Now we just have to walk him all the way down to get him in the chamber, and we'll just replace the piece of glass, and there we go. We got our first pillager. Nice. That actually, that was pretty easy. Now, for the time being, what I'm actually going to do is completely cover him in cobblestone, because we still have to transfer the other pillager over, and once we actually start getting villagers in here, I don't want them to get spooked by these guys and start spawning iron golems before we're ready for them, because that could cause a number of problems. You know, we're building all these bridges and cobblestone pathways and everything, and if an iron golem spawns when we're building and we accidentally hit it, it could mean the end of the series, so we definitely don't want that to happen. But anyways, now it's time to fly all the way back to our pillager outpost, grab our second guy, take him down the mountain, onto the ocean, through this river cave, into the frozen ocean, up the hill and across the snowy plains in the boat, up the tube, and into his chamber. Now, if you guys haven't already, I am going to ask you to subscribe today, because I know that was just a 30-second clip for you, but a lot of the things you've been seeing me do today have taken multiple hours, so I would really appreciate the support on this video. Now, with both of the pillagers in place, it is time to start transferring over all the villagers. So I'm going to begin by building out a pathway to the top of all of the villager chambers. That way, when we bring them up here, we can just walk them straight in, they'll fall down, and we can close them off with no problems. But this is potentially going to be the hardest part of this entire video. Now again, I know what you're thinking. Incy, you just transferred the pillagers over, and they're arguably harder to get into place than the villagers are. And while that's true, we need a total of 43 villagers for this farm to work at max efficiency. And keep in mind, we haven't even bred them up yet, so I'm gonna have to do everything from putting them all in boats to collecting wheat for their bread to placing down all of their beds. It is going to be chaos. But yeah, wish me luck. Hours. It has been 8 hours of non-stop villager things. The farm is done, but at what cost? I'm ready to put my arm through my monitor and my head through a wall. It's fine. It's fine. The last thing we need to do is build up this little AFK chamber here with glass. This is very temporary, but it'll work for now. And then we're going to AFK here for probably like an hour to 2 hours, more like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully this was worth it. All right, let's be careful coming into the nether here. I also changed up a bit of the components of this build. There was an automated sorting system for flowers and iron, but I didn't need that. So I just put a bunch more chests down. And oh my God, are these, they're all full of iron. Guys, it's been less than 2 hours. We may have, is this overkill? This might be overkill. I don't see how we're ever going to actually use this much iron. In just under 2 hours, we got an entire shulker box full, plus basically 4 stacks of iron blocks. Not ingots, blocks. You know, at this point, I feel like it might be worth building a wither skeleton farm, and dude, we could just spam beacons. They could be everywhere. Full power beacons. That is insane. But all right, I need to take a break from building the iron farm because that took forever. So for right now, we're actually headed back over to the entertainment district. Now, the reason we're going over here is because I recently ran a build competition over in my Discord server, which if you haven't already, make sure you click the link in the description to join that. But I had a bunch of my subscribers compete to redesign my library in the entertainment district, and whoever's redesign won gets to have their version of my library library built in my world, so they're forever cemented as a part of Incy's Hardcore Season 2. So I'd like to give a big congratulations to Fee, the winner of this competition, and we're gonna go ahead and jump over in creative to react to what she made. Okay, so we are here in one of my creative testing worlds. I have seen images in my Discord of what she's done, but I'm very excited to see it all live here in person. So nonetheless, it definitely still looks a lot more beautiful. So we're gonna go ahead and I see some things inside. I'm excited. We're gonna check it out. Dude, what? Oh, look, this is gorgeous. Look at all of the detail here. Oh my god, I've got a lot of work to do. We got a whole fireplace in here now and a staircase. How have you managed to fit a staircase into this build? Dude, there's 3 layers? I didn't even realize there were 3 layers in the picture. Oh my god, this is so much better than what I would have done. Holy, you knocked it out of the park, dude. I mean, look, we've got another desk area up here. Bro, is there an attic too? Hold on. There is an attic. This is insane. But with that, we're going to quickly grab all of the supplies we need, and we're going to get to building our brand new library. And while we're constructing this thing, I just wanted to extend another thank you to Fee for participating, and a congratulations on winning. You did a really good job. And for those of you who didn't win, I wanted to thank you for your participation. And to everybody else, I wanted to tell you that this will not be the last time I'll be running a competition like this. I plan to do these semi-frequently. In fact, the next one is starting within just a couple of days here, so again, make sure you're over on the Discord and getting prepared for the next competition. And I also just wanted to thank each and every one of you for continuing to support the channel, and I wanted to extend a special thank you to all my Patreons and channel members as well. I've said it 100 times before, but it never stops being true. You guys really are the lifeblood of this channel, and I can't thank you enough. But alright, let's take one last look at this gorgeous, gorgeous library. We'll make sure we take a peek at all the different levels here. I am so happy with the way this turned out. Of course, let's not forget about the attic too. And now all that's left to do is take a name tag, name it after Fee, and we're actually going to name tag this little cleric villager here, and we will move them over to the library in a little bit. I could have gotten a librarian villager, but I actually feel like the look of the cleric with his kind of long purple robes would fit the vibe of this area better. But with that done and out of the way, now it's time to start collecting the supplies for the actual exterior of the iron farm. And fortunately for us, we actually have a lot of these supplies already on hand, and the other supplies that we need are just a few bulk mining sessions away from being in our possession. So we're gonna fly out to our mangrove swamp and start collecting one of the easier blocks in this process, which is just a bunch of mud. Next up is another easy block, which is pale moss blocks actually. And this is the first time I'll be using pale moss blocks in any kind of gradient. However, I've been seeing them all around the building community. They're starting to seem to be more useful, or at least a more prominent block that people use more frequently. So I'm excited to try this one out. Now, another thing we need is a bunch of snow carpets and snow blocks. So I'm actually going to head over to our farming district here. I'm gonna get myself a carved pumpkin, and then I am going to quickly head up to our snowy mountain here to grab 2 pieces of snow, and I'm going to build up this little cage in our greenhouse here, plop down a snow golem, and then just start spamming this thing with our shovel to get all the snowballs and all the carpets we need. Now, as quickly as that was going, I discovered it would actually probably be better if we just silk touch mine the entire top of a mountain. That way we could get all the snow blocks we need at once, so we don't have to gather all the snowballs and then craft them into the snow blocks. It's basically saving us an extra step. So even though I had to take 3 extra minutes to go fly out to a mountain biome that I know we're not going to be using in the future, this is still going to be a big time saver. But now we are on to all of the stone blocks. And so I'm over in our mining district here, and I'm just looking through all of our chests to try to collect as much tough and deep slate as I can possibly find. Now, the good news is we actually had so much tough in reserve that we have enough for the build and we won't have to go mining for that. So that saves us an entire step. But the problem is we do not have nearly enough deep slate. So I'm going to tear down this beacon real quick, and we're just going to head directly underground right next to where the iron farm is going to be. And we're just going to start hollowing out as many tunnels as possible to collect all the cobbled deep slate. Now, not only will we need cobbled deep slate, but we'll also need deep slate bricks and cracked deep slate bricks. And the biggest issue here is that we are going to need 4,000 of each of those, which means I am in for a mining session that is going to require over 12,000 blocks of deep slate. And if you guys know anything about deep slate, you all know that even with efficiency 5 and a haste beacon, it still takes forever. But honestly, this is one of the most enjoyable parts of Minecraft, the mining part of Minecraft, if you can believe it or not. I love these big long sessions I have where I basically just have an excuse to throw on Spotify or a podcast and just listen to something interesting or jam out to some music while I go brain dead and just mine for 2 hours straight. But there we go, we are all done, and I actually managed to get a full stack of deep slate diamond ore plus an additional one. That additional one piece is like just a little cherry on top. I'm not gonna lie, I would have actually rather preferred to have grabbed a full stack. If that had worked out perfectly, oh, that would have been so satisfying. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna throw these down on the ground to see just how many diamonds we can get. Leave your guesses in the comments, see if you get it right. You don't win anything if you do, but I don't know. I'm just trying to increase engagement. But there we have it, a stack and 62 diamonds. Again, just barely off of that perfect 2-stack mark, but honestly, I'll take it. You know, we just accidentally got rich. I didn't even mean to find all of these diamonds. It's just that I've mined such a big area, I happened to collect them all. Pretty great. Now, one of the last things we need to do is just smelt a bunch of these deep slate bricks to get cracked deep slate bricks. So I'm just going to create a couple more furnaces here. We actually really need a super smelter in this world as well. Let me know if you guys would like to see that as a future episode. But yeah, we're just going to take a bunch of this deep slate bricks and throw it in there to get smelted up. And with that, we are finally ready to start building the iron farm. So let's get right into it. Guys, I'm just gonna say it. This is one of the best things I've ever made. I absolutely love the way that this turned out. And I think the reason why I love it so much is because it looks almost identical to the inspiration image I used for this build. I'm going to throw it up on screen here, and then I'm going to show you this again. It looks so similar. Even back here from like where the frozen ocean is, look at that thing from a distance. God, it looks so beautiful. Now, there are some more things that I need to do on this thing, but I wanted to briefly mention that I am aware there are a pretty decent amount of other builders, it seems like, that have done their own take on this particular inspiration image. And I just feel like I should mention that I, for sure, was not trying to copy anybody else's builds, and I didn't use any of their assets or any of their builds for inspiration for my own. I went entirely off of the base image to give my own take on a structure or a picture that I just thought was a really cool piece of concept art. But anyways, one of the things I want to do is add just a bunch of doorways, kind of on all the different levels of this place for people to get in and get out of. We aren't going to have an interior on this thing because we need the iron farm to actually be functional, and we don't want to mess up the spawn rates or anything. Maybe we could have an interior on the upper portion of the build, way up top, but we're probably not going to get it done, but regardless, I think having some spruce doors made out of spruce doors and spruce trapdoors would help to add kind of a little pop of color to this build and kind of just bring it all together. So we're going to chop down some of these spruce trees here. We're going to craft up all the doors and trapdoors that we need, and then we are just going to come in and place a couple of these doors all over the build. And then the other thing I want to do, I also crafted up some spruce fences. I want to come in and place in some spruce fence windows. You see, we have a couple of windows all over the place, or like arrow slits that look like they were carved into the build and part of the natural structure. But since this build has a very worn down and kind of melted kind of look, which I'll get into later, I figured it would make the most sense, since a lot of the build is broken, that there would be some windows that are also broken and maybe a little bit bigger than they should be. So the people who work here, or rather I guess the villagers that work here, decided it would be best to board some of the windows up to do whatever they can to keep the build as complete as possible. But all right, another thing I want to do is I want to get some campfires in and around the place. So we're actually going to have to fly home and check underneath of the greenhouse and kind of like our foliage bulk storage. I know I have some hay bales in here somewhere. There we go, that'll work. And now I'm just going to place down some of these hay bales with campfires on top of them to get, you know, that really tall campfire smoke. You know, this build is meant to look like an iron forge, so it would make a lot of sense that this forge, you know, had a bunch of smoke coming out the top as the iron is getting smelted down. Kind of morbid if you think about it, considering the fact that we're burning iron golems in here, but they're not actually conscious beings, so we can ignore the unethical implications that this build has, and we can just have fun. But there we go. That, oh my god, that adds a lot. Now, the only other problem that we're going to have here is, again, the spawning mechanics of these iron golems. Now, I have designed this build to be so that most of the blocks where they could spawn are actually too far away from the farm for them to actually spawn on. But as you can see, like right here, we actually have a straggler iron golem who managed to spawn on the outside of the build. And if we have even one extra iron golem anywhere near the villagers, it's going to completely mess up the farm and decrease our rates significantly, and this entire process will have been for nothing. So what I have to do is spend the next couple of hours going around the interior and the exterior of the build and placing snow carpets, just one layer of snow carpets wherever there is the opportunity for iron golems to spawn, to make sure we spawn proof the area. Now, the other issue with this is that the snow carpets are going to look the best, and they're one of the only things that can really prevent iron golems from spawning, but they do not prevent hostile mobs from spawning. And we can't light up the area with torches because then the snow carpets would melt. So we're just going to kind of have to accept the fact that hostile mobs are going to be able to spawn on the outside of this thing, and we'll just have to make sure that the inside is really protected and there's no way for them to get access to the villagers if they were somehow to break in. I am also going to turn on the lighty mod here, and we are going to make sure the entire bottom floor of this place is lit up as well. But there we go. After 2 to 3 hours of searching around, checking every nook and cranny for spawning iron golems, we have managed to basically cover the entire place. There are a few more spots I need to pick up right here and right there, but other than that, we should be good to go. The farm is working well, we're not having any additional spawns, and we are getting thousands upon thousands of iron ingots per hour. Now we just have a little bit of house cleaning left to do. When I was using Lightmatica to build this thing, because I did design it in creative mode first, there are a few places around the base of the build that are kind of not incomplete, but there's a couple of holes everywhere that we need to fill in with some snow blocks. So I'm gonna kind of go around everywhere and make sure that everything is filled in and complete and connected to the ground. And then I'm also going to work on this pathway kind of leading up to the main entrance. The problem here is that every time it snows, this pathway is going to get covered up by a layer of snow carpets, which is really kind of annoying. So maybe we'll have to place some glow lichen down every now and again to make sure it kind of stays melted. I really do just love the look of a cobblestone and diorite pathway here. It makes it look like there's just a bunch of trampled, dirty snow, and I think it's the perfect texture, so we definitely need to figure out a solution to this problem, but I'm leaving that for future Incy. And speaking of this pathway, we're also going to come in with some diorite slabs and some cobblestone slabs, and we're going to run these up the little hill here just to make sure we can really have a smooth walking experience when we're headed up to our iron farm. But with that, guys, the iron farm is done and complete, and I am just honestly, I feel like I'm on cloud 9 right now. I am super happy with how this build turned out. Like I said, it is almost a spitting image of the concept art. I put my own little twist on it. Again, you know, this is an iron forge, so a lot of this build, I wanted to make it look like it had been exposed to just like extreme levels of like otherworldly and kind of magical sorcery heat, you know, to kind of fit with the lore that we're going with here. And so I wanted to make the build look like it was kind of melted. So a lot of the towers and other places you see on this thing, you know, they're crumbled down. They're very disproportionate. You know, it even bulges in a few spots. And I think it looks just absolutely perfect. I'm very happy with, you know, the details I managed to put in with some snow hanging off the top and some heavier, deeper spots. The block gradient turned out great. And obviously the thing is just massive. And don't even get me started about how cool it looks during Minecraft's golden hours and nighttime hours. Just, I absolutely love it. Over the past 4 months, I've been building a lot of really large structures in my Minecraft hardcore world. And so to give myself a little bit of a break, we're going to step back and do a bit of a smaller build. And honestly, I think placing something on this hill behind me would look really cool as a backdrop for when we're on the main island. So we're gonna get started by what a lot of our episodes start out with: deforestation. And also, just so you guys know, I finally have an official Incy Plus mod pack over on Modrin. So if you have any questions about what shaders I'm using or why some things in this video are visually different than my other videos, all of those answers can be found over on my mod pack page. So go give it a download and check it out. I'd really appreciate it. Now, I really hate to do this, but this is the part of the video where I do that YouTube thing and I ask you to subscribe to the channel, because if you couldn't tell by this massive amount of shulker boxes that are full of items, that may have only been a 40-second segment for you guys, but that was a 3-hour process of clearing trees for me, so consider subscribing. But anyways, we've moved over to the entertainment district because I need to grab as many grass blocks as I can get my hands on. You see, even though we tore out a bunch of trees and are making good progress, being able to see the land in its entirety has exposed some of its flaws. So we need to take this grass and fill in a bunch of holes to make an attempt at smoothing out this terrain. And there we go, that should be good for now. And what's crazy is this hill looks like it was built using Axiom, but it wasn't. This is natural terrain. It is very smooth. Next up on our to-do list is a short flight over to the mining district so we can collect some leftover tough diorite, cobblestone, calcite, and mossy cobblestone. And that's because this little castle that we're going to be building on top of the hill is going to be very similar to some of the other castles we've built in this world. Now, the lore that I'm trying to build here is that this is actually a vineyard that belongs to the king of our starter island. And so when he gets a break from his very long days of running the kingdom, this location is kind of like his home away from home, and it's where he goes to rest up for a while. So I figured it would make a lot of sense for this build to use the same block palette as the castle. Now, to kind of ease ourselves into this process, we're going to be starting with one of the more simple parts of this build, which is the gatehouse that is also going to act as the front entrance to the castle. And I'm going to design this by making just 2 simple towers connected together by a gate and a bridge. And that right there is actually a pretty good start. However, I am going to hop into my stone cutter here, and we're going to grab some diorite walls and some cobblestone stairs. And of course, we're going to craft up some spruce fences as well. We're going to take all these different block variants here, and we're going to start by rounding out the entrance, or like the underbelly part of where the actual gate will be in the gatehouse. And we'll just take out a block in the middle, and this is where our spruce fences will go. Then we're just going to come to the tops of the builds here, and we are going to finish setting up the walls on the roofs of the castle by using these diorite walls. And there we are. After placing some torches on top to get a little bit of light to make sure no mobs spawn, I think we're good to move on. Fortunately for us, what we have to do next is probably the second easiest part of this build, which is this kind of raised back wall here. And this is basically the same design as the 2 towers on the front of the build, just perhaps a little bit longer. Now that we've got that main structure in place, we're just going to come in with some slabs to kind of try to smooth out the stairways we have to make the changes in elevation a little bit easier. And then of course we're going to do the same thing on the top of the walls here that we did on the top of the towers, by filling in all of the gaps with some more diorite walls. Now, before we continue with this next part of the build, we actually have to head over to the farming district for a little bit because we have to collect a bunch of wheat. The reason for this being, we need to combine it with the leftover mud we collected earlier. That way we could get packed mud and mud bricks. And we need this mud because we're going to combine it with a bunch of spruce variation blocks to make up the block palette for the roof. But now that we have the roof blocks, we can begin building up the next portion of this castle, which is actually going to be this longer section off to the left here, and this will eventually act as the castle stables. And then right off to the right of this, we're also going to build a little tower that is actually going to act as a stairwell, so the king and his family and the castle staff members can traverse the place more easily. Now I'm back over in the entertainment district right now because I ran out of mud blocks, but look at how cool this fog is from, I believe, the subtle effects mod. With this mod, in certain temperature biomes, when it rains, you'll actually get fog, so I think that's so cool. Yeah, like look, even over here in this kind of warmer beach biome, we have it going on a little bit. I love mods like this, man. It just really helps to improve the atmosphere of Minecraft. But anyways, visual things aside, I actually want to come to the inside of the stables here, and I just want to tear up all the grass and replace it with packed mud and coarse dirt. Obviously, this is where all the horses and some other stable animals are going to go, so it would make sense that it's trampled down pretty good. Then we can also just curve this pathway around and extend it going out through the front of the gate. And another little bit of progress that I want to make here before we continue on the build is actually installing the details on the roof. We're going to come in and we're just going to remove a bunch of the mud slabs that we already have, and we're going to replace them with an assortment of spruce blocks. I'm also going to be working with some spruce trapdoors to give us some elevation changes in the roof, kind of make it look like it's collapsed in a few parts and just make it seem more realistic as a whole in general. But with that done, we are going to continue moving towards the right side of this build, and we're going to finish detailing that tower I was talking about that's going to act as the stairwell. And then to the right of that, we're adding another structure that is going to have this really neat open portion at the top, and this is actually where the main dining hall is going to be. And honestly, I think this dining hall room, it's not even finished yet, but I think it's already one of my most favorite places in this entire world. I mean, just look at the views of the villager trading hall and the castle and main starter island you get from sitting up here. And now I do want to add a little bit more details on this thing real quick, just because I'm so excited about it. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but we have fun here, it doesn't matter. So we're gonna throw in some diorite stairs to help with arches, and then to, I guess, also help with arches, we picked up some pale oak from the entertainment district that we had left over from a couple episodes ago, and we're gonna align kind of the walls here, or these pillars, with these trapdoors to, again, give us a bit of a better arch shape. But since I was very clearly getting distracted, I decided it was time to lock in and grind out the rest of the castle over the next few hours. And we're starting off with yet another tower off to the right of the dining hall, which will actually be the biggest tower in this build, and the top of it will act as the main bedroom for our king when he stays here. And I'm not sure what I want to do with the bottom of it yet. Maybe it'll end up being some kind of common room, but at this point we're still a ways away from being able to work on the interior, so we'll worry about that later. Finally, the last thing we need to do to complete the main structure is just add a couple of connecting buildings to help connect the back wall to the front towers. Again, all of these different rooms will have a purpose, and I've also included this smaller circular one on the side, so hopefully we'll be able to fit something interesting in there. And honestly, you can't really tell from the time lapses because a lot of them are from a top-down perspective, but this thing is actually really big. I meant for this to be a smaller project, but I've been working on it for 2 days now, and it's starting to feel pretty daunting. Getting a little nervous about how long this is actually going to take, but we're gonna keep going with it. I mean, there's no turning back now. It's here. And what I actually want to do next is take a bunch of cobblestone and start laying out some of the pathways that are going to be around the perimeter of this castle's property. I do eventually want these pathways to also converge and then run all the way along the side of this cliff face here, and eventually it will lead to a bridge that connects to the main island, but we're going to leave that for another episode. And after another quick wheat harvesting session, because we ran out of more packed mud, we are now good to kind of trace along those cobblestone paths we laid out by digging out the grass, and then of course placing in that packed mud we were just talking about and some more coarse dirt. And before we really commit to this, I'm going to test out using some mud brick slabs and some spruce slabs to see if we can get kind of a smoother feeling when we're walking up and down the hill here. And yeah, I think that will actually work pretty nicely, so we're going to do that everywhere. So I'm going to fire up another time lapse and get started on digging out the pathways and placing in all that coarse dirt. And we're hopefully going to be able to bang this process out in just an hour or two. Pathway is really long. We do have a big distance to cover, but it's only a couple blocks wide, so it shouldn't pose that much of an issue. But alright, I feel like that is definitely a pretty big area to work with. In fact, I may have bitten off more than I can chew. But regardless, I'm very excited for this next part of the process. You see, now it's time to actually start building that vineyard I was talking about earlier in this video. And we're going to begin with a very simple process of kind of just marking out where the main vines are going to be. I'm going to do that by stacking some leaves 2 blocks on top of each other, and then once every 5 to 7 blocks, we're going to come in and set up some fences to attempt to make it look like the grapevines are growing alongside said fences. There we have the first little section done, and I think when this place is complete, this is really going to start looking a lot better, but to be honest with you, it already looks pretty cool. I also went ahead and made sure I left some bigger gaps in between some of the different grapevines. That way we can have pathways that we can actually walk around in and decorate them with different blocks. Now what we're going to do is just repeat that same process in a couple of different sections here. I'm thinking about 3 would probably be best. So by the time we're done with this, most of this little mountainside here should be covered in bushes and grapevines. But now that we've got the location for all of the grapevines mapped out, it's time to start collecting some of the blocks that are going to help us actually detail them. So I actually flew out to our taiga biome here to not only collect some more spruce wood for the future interior of the build, but to also gather up some of these spruce leaves to help us get a little bit of a different texture and a darker color into the grapevines as well. With all of the spruce leaves placed down, there are a few more detailing blocks that we're going to need access to, one of which is actually moss blocks and more bone meal. So I'm just gonna chill out here at our bone meal farm for a couple of hours to get both of those things, and then we'll go from there. With that done comes one of the more dangerous parts of this video, where we have to fly out to the ocean to collect some coral blocks. Now, the reason why I'm collecting these coral blocks is because I'm actually using a method of building I used in Season 1 of Hardcore. We're going to be taking all these different colors and we're going to be placing them randomly, not only throughout the vine fields, but also throughout some more flower fields that we're going to be building around this castle as well. And the hope is that if we place some trapdoors around these things, it'll look like there are a bunch of bushels of flowers that are being collected and transported to and from the castle. You know, I figured if this was a vineyard, it would also make sense if they had a lot of different flowers growing around the place. Not only just look pretty around the place, but maybe there is some use for these flowers too. Maybe the people use the scents of the flowers to help imbue their wine, or maybe even extract some of the flavors to put in the drinks as well. I think that would be pretty cool. I have no idea how real wine crafting works in real life, so that's completely theoretical. Don't kill me if I'm wrong about the logic behind using the scents and tastes of flowers in wine. I'm just... block game, alright? Block game. Now, the other thing I did while I was over waiting for the bone meal to grow was I grabbed a bunch of roses and some sweet berries as well. And these are the 2 blocks we're going to primarily be using to make it look like there are actually red grapes growing on all these vines. But now that we have all of that sorted out, it's time to start placing in some more pathways all throughout all these different vines here. With all those pathways in place, we are now good to go along and start placing down all of the rose bushes and berry bushes. I placed down all of the pathways first because if we did the berries and roses first, there was a good chance we'd have to pick them all up and put them down a second time because we'd be replacing all of the grass that's underneath of them with the coarse dirt. But there we go. Look at how beautiful all of these rows of grapevines look in front of the castle there. Now I am starting to really get excited about the future of this project. But now what I need to do is kind of refine some of these pathways, especially the ones that are along the outside of the property, and I kind of need to just line them with some cobblestone, stone, mossy cobblestone, and other, stone variation blocks. And we're going to do this to help connect the pathways to the ground a little bit more, to make it look like there are some different rock formations that have actually raised up the land in certain spots, and the pathways have been built around those areas. And then once we have the base outline set in, we're going to just come in with a bunch of stairs and slabs to help smooth it all together. And yeah, taking a step back and looking at this from FreeCam mod, that looks a lot better. But now that that's done, we can start working on another really exciting part of this video, which is designing and setting up all the different fields that we're going to have in front of the vineyard. And we're going to begin by just once again laying out a bunch of different pathways with some cobblestone blocks to kind of get an idea of what this will visually look like when it's done. And something like this should be pretty good. But before we can actually start placing all the path blocks down, I need to go out and collect some more gravel because we ran out of coarse dirt. Fortunately for us, there's a stony shores right nearby, so this should be light work. We are also going to swing back out to our mangrove swamp because we need to collect some more mud as well. But with that, we can get back to placing down the pathways and get this entire field sorted out. all the pathways marked out, it's now time to start lining the perimeter of the fields once again with some more cobblestone walls. And we're just going to do the same thing we did up by the grain vines by placing down a base wall and then going back through with a bunch of slabs and stairs to help detail the thing. But now we are also going to come in with another layer of detail here by adding in some oak leaves all over the place. I kind of want to make it look like that this wall hasn't really been all that well maintained, so it's kind of broken down and overgrown in a lot of different places. And finally, another thing I want to do is come in with a bunch of different fences and actually trapdoors as well. And I want to build these in particular where the pathways from the field converge with the main pathway that surrounds the property. Now, my goal here is to make it look like that the pathways that run through the field used to connect to the main road that runs around the edge of the property itself. But as the starter island grew, as more citizens and civilians moved in and traffic along this road got more dense, the king decided it would be best to close off those extra entrances to just ensure the safety of his family and to make sure nobody got on the property to ruin the crops they were growing. And there we go. This looks really good now. I'm very happy with how this is going. And it is finally time to start planting a bunch of flowers all throughout this field here. So we're gonna start by bone mealing and placing down a bunch of these lilacs to get our first flower field in place. Next up on our list is just a bunch of peonies here, and then once we're done with that, we can continue collecting the rest of the flowers and placing them down. Well, I know we were just placing flowers, but that took quite a while. But honestly, guys, this was definitely worth it. I think this place is looking absolutely gorgeous from this main road here. Just seeing that castle sit atop the hill with all of the flowers and the vineyard in front of it, it's just so cool. And from above and free cam mod, it even looks cooler. And don't even get me started about how cool it looks on the map. I mean, you know, it's actually a really big area. Like, it takes up over half the size of the starter island. I can't believe, I mean, this is a big space we filled up. And the views of our main castle from this area are also just insane. I'm really looking forward to this thing being done. But anyways, I want to start decorating all the different fields now, but before we do that, we need to put up another cobblestone wall along the main pathway heading up to the gatehouse. That way this area off to the side here will feel a little bit more complete and just look better in general. And I'm also doing this because eventually off to the right of this wall, I want to replace that entire forest with another custom forest. I really want to make an aspen, or I guess birch forest of some kind, which we're going to get to the beginning stages of that later in this video, but Yeah, that's something we're going to do a couple episodes from now, but I figured I would mention it now just to get you guys prepared. You know, that is, I don't know if it'll be a standalone video coming, but it is something I'm planning on doing. But yeah, there we go. That feels a lot better. But all right, now it's time to start placing down a bunch of those coral blocks we gathered earlier to hopefully make it look like there are a bunch of flower bushels everywhere. We're going to start on one of the main roads here. I'd kind of like to create some kind of little cart here. Yeah, something like that, actually. I think that looks pretty good. But now we're just going to come into a bunch of different places on the map here, and we're just going to dot in a bunch of different variations of, I guess, like, you know, little things like garden tools, I guess. We'll have a couple of wheelbarrows everywhere. Again, we'll have those bushels of flowers I was talking about, and we'll just try to decorate this place to the best of our ability. But there we go, guys. This area is much more alive now that we've placed all those blocks in. Not only did we add a bunch of flower decorations, but I also came in with a bunch of fences to kind of give a little bit more order to the different fields, and I'm super happy with the way this turned out. But now it's time to get started on one of the most exciting parts of this video, which is heading over into our creative testing world to design some of those aspen trees I was just talking about. We're going to be using these as the templates going forward to build all the trees on this property, and I figured now would be a good time to mention that all of these trees will be available for download for my Diamond Tier Patreon members. So if you want to help support the channel while simultaneously getting access to every single thing I've ever built in hardcore Minecraft, consider checking out the Patreon. I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of my current Patreon members and channel members. It literally would not be possible for me to continue to make videos without your support. So thank you very much for everything you do for the channel. But now that we are back in the hardcore world, it's time to just collect up all the supplies we'll need to build these trees. Fortunately, since we've been playing in this world for over a year now, we actually have all the supplies we will need for this kind of just dotted around the place in different chests. So I'm just gonna go searching through and grab everything that I want, and then we'll get to building. Now actually, the one thing that we do need is a bunch of short grass. I want to use this grass to help us detail the leaves, but even though we don't have that, getting a couple of stacks of it is super easy. I just have to run around with my shears and collect it all up. Listen, man, I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but I could not be happier with the way that these turned out. These trees have definitely transformed the entire property. I absolutely love the way that they look, and I think they add a lot to this build by helping to kind of break up the emptiness that this skyline here kind of has. It also just helps to provide some shade along the main road, and it gives a little bit more privacy to the castle goers. I really honestly cannot wait until that entire birch forest is replaced with trees like this. Now, I want to add a couple little details to the front of the build here, since we're basically done with the main field. I'm actually going to replace the ground here with some white and red carpets. I'm also going to throw down some composters and some oak trapdoors for a little picnic basket, because I want to make a little picnic blanket. We're going to use some pressure plates for some, I guess, for some plates. Throw a flower pot down to make it look like a little cup, and maybe we'll put some buttons around it for, I don't know, maybe some utensils or some food, like little cupcakes or something sitting around. And then for the first time in, I think, 10 years, I am going to go out of my way in Minecraft to bake a cake. I think baking a cake is the most Minecrafty thing you can do in Minecraft. So I'm embarrassed to admit I am getting a lot of joy out of this right now. But let's go ahead and place that bad boy down. I love it, dude. I love it. Now, I think it would also make sense at the top of the hill here if we had a little bit of some kind of water pump. I like to think that there's some kind of spring at the top of the hill here. It would make sense because that way then the water could run down the hill and, you know, well, water and give life to all the plants and vegetation and grapevines and flowers and whatnot. I think this little design here with a little pot under the water looks pretty good. Now to add a little bit more realism, I'm just going to come in with like a very skinny pathway using coarse dirt blocks. And then we are also going to bone meal this entire hill here. We're going to get rid of any flowers and tall grass that we see. I'd like to make this hill look really fluffy, so we're actually going to cover it in short grass. Yep, there we go. This is working for me. I like it. Now, I should be starting on the interior here, but I'm actually getting a little bit distracted because I just had an idea for another detail we could kind of dot throughout the fields here. I want to come in with some campfires and some trapdoors and just build a couple of benches everywhere. That way, whoever is working in the flower fields or the vineyard have like a nice place to sit kind of on hot summer days when they're out working. And now this entire area also is not going to be completely mob proof, which is going to kind of bug me, but we can kind of sort out this issue by reducing mob spawns by just going around the place and placing down some lanterns. And we're also going to build up some light posts as well, just some very simple ones using fences, trapdoors, and slabs. So this way, at the very least, we'll get a little bit of lighting throughout the area. And another little detail I want to add is some pretty big beehives using, well, of course, beehives and some oak stairs as well. I think this is a pretty cool design and it fits the vibe of this place well. I think it would make sense if we had a bunch of bees around the area kind of pollinating all the flowers and whatnot. But with that, all of the landscaping for this build is basically done. Now what I want to do is go back up to the main castle, and earlier in the video, I got a little distracted and I never really finished detailing all of the roofs. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did earlier and just add in a bunch of spruce variation blocks to the roofs here to make them look more visually appealing. But alright, with all of that done and out of the way, it's time to start decorating the interiors of the castle. Now I know this isn't technically an interior, but it does have to do with decorating the thing. We're going to start with putting a bunch of barrels and pots and scaffolding and some spruce slabs and some wood piles all over the place on the top of this outside wall here to hopefully kind of make it look like at one point maybe this was used as a defensive position for the castle, but since this kingdom hasn't been at war for years, they kind of just used this place as maybe a little sitting area every now and again, and maybe an area just for some extra storage. Next, we are going to move into the inside of the stables here, and we're going to start by installing a little bit of a roof to kind of separate the bottom area where the horses are from where some kind of attic space for extra storage could be, and maybe some extra hay bales for them to eat. And we'll also put up some gates as well. And while I'm thinking of it, we're also going to replace all the floors in the building itself with calcite, and we are also going to set up some new archways to kind of make the interior a bit more interesting to walk through and give the building a little bit more separation. Now, I know I'm getting a little distracted and I'm all over the place here, but I just now was thinking about how we do need a little way to get down into the courtyard. So I'm going to quickly whip up a little staircase section outside the house here. And there we go. I think this looks a lot better. But now at this point in the build, I decided to fire up a couple of live streams and start working on some of the interiors with you guys, which I guess this is the perfect time for me to mention. If you don't have your channel notifications on, you guys are missing out because I do build a lot of these things live on my channel. Now, for the rest of this process, I want you guys to keep in mind that I actually elected to not record a lot of the item gathering sections of the rest of this video. And that's mainly because there are literally hundreds of like one-off items that we only need one or two of. And if I were to record that and put it in this video, not only would the video length be extended by 20 to 30 minutes, but it would also just be kind of boring. Just trust me when I say it wasn't a very fun process. But anyways, we began by digging out a hole for the basement, and I decided I wanted to turn this into a wine cellar. You know, it makes the most sense considering that this is a vineyard. There would most likely be a giant storage room for wine down below. But here we go, guys. Again, we did most of this during the live streams, but our wine cellar is finished, and I am very happy with how this turned out. We did a lot of detailing. We got everything from brewing stands with some bottles on them to a bunch of barrels with wine being poured out. And we even came up with this kind of like wine bottle design. I'm not super happy with the way it turned out, but I think it gets the idea across. I also decorated this side wall here and added a bunch of extra layers for storage, and we detailed the staircase a lot better as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out. And the next thing I want to do is some more courtyard work. I want to kind of set up a little weaponsmith outside here. I feel like it would make sense if this castle had some kind of armor smith or just toolsmith working outside. So I'm just going to come in here and try to build up a pretty big furnace, and then we'll place some decoration blocks outside as well. And there we go. I actually think that looks really good. Now, off to the left of that, we do kind of have this big empty space, and I don't really have any ideas as to what could go here. So we're actually just going to build up a really big cart to make it look like all those ores have been transported down from the mountain and are kind of just sitting off to the side here, getting prepped for their usage in the weapons. And there we go, that's good. And this wandering trader here, actually, you know what? I may take these firefly bushes. This is the first time I'm going to trade with a wandering trader in this world, I think. What do you know? This guy is actually useful. Still, rules are rules. And now that that's done, we'll take some of these firefly bushes and dot them around the area so we get some more ambiance at night. Now, I do want to come back into the courtyard here and build another one of those weirwood trees that we have over in the entertainment district. Well, I don't actually want to call them weirwood trees, but they are based on the weirwood trees in Game of Thrones. However, even though they're visually the same, I do want mine to have a little bit of different lore behind them. Now, I'm actually going to come over to the entertainment district here, and I'm going to try to design a banner that makes it look like the trees have eyes that are bleeding, kind of like we did on the first one and like the actual trees have in the show. But while I do this, I want to talk a little bit about the lore behind my trees. I think I actually want to call them whispering oaks. And the lore I was actually going to give to these trees is the idea that they're actually used as communication devices. It's said that if you pray to them for a certain amount of hours without any distractions or breaking your focus whatsoever, the trees will actually allow you to speak to them, and they'll carry your words on the wind to another whispering oak anywhere else in the world you want the message to go. And so that's kind of how the royalty of all the different kingdoms in this world communicate with each other. And it is also said that the trees will know whether or not you're trying to be deceptive to another person. So when it comes to times of war, there's actually no way for you to lie to your enemies about what you're up to or your troop movements or anything like that, because the trees will know about it. And even if you get the message across, it's said that if you do lie, they'll place a curse on you. But there we go. I think the little face on this tree turned out absolutely awesome. I love it. And I also like the idea of people coming to like hang their prayers on this tree. So we're going to place down a bunch of hanging signs and just write a bunch of different random messages on them to kind of get that idea across. And there we go. I'm super happy with how this turned out. Now moving over to something a little less lore intensive, we are going to build up kind of a little training area right across from the stables. I figured this would be a good place for maybe the king and his children to practice their swordplay and whatnot. And then we're also just going to go throughout the courtyard here, add in a couple piles of barrels and just decorate it with a bit more foliage. And now for something you guys have been waiting months for. You see, I've had this problem in my world where all of my pets have been locked away in the basement of my starter base, and honestly, they really deserve better. So my secret plan for this episode was actually to build this entire house for them. Yes, in lore, it's for the king, but I really just actually needed an excuse to build a home for all of my animals because they really deserve it after having been neglected for basically over a year now. So we're gonna go ahead and pick them up and just walk them back over to the main castle to give them their new homes. And I'm also going to spend a little bit more time preparing the stables here with a little bit more details because we are also going to bring our horse up here. Now, before we actually move the animals into the house, it's important that it's all decorated and ready for them. So I'm going to start by building up this kind of little spiral staircase in the stairwell section of the house. And right at the top here, we are off of the main dining area. So I figured it would make the most sense if we had a little tiny kitchen area that's just used to store the food that's going to be used for the main course of the current meal that's being served. We're going to build a bigger kitchen downstairs later. Again, I kind of just want something where the food that's already been cooked from the kitchen gets brought up and gets prepared on plates and made to look real fancy in this little side room. And there we go. I am very happy with how this turned out. I even included some mini blocks in here as well, which is pretty cool. And of course, moving forward, I figured it would make the most sense to just get started on the actual dining room itself, since that's literally right next to this tiny kitchen. So I'm going to come in with some trapdoors here to just build a little table. And then I'm going to set up some pretty fancy chairs using dark oak stairs, dark oak trapdoors, and some red banners. We're also going to sit some red candles on the table and some red carpets as well. And what would a dining room be without a chandelier? So we're going to make a little one of those at the top here, right above the table. Then I'm also going to come in and decorate the place with some anvils and some plants. And I am also going to hang some flower pots as well, just to add that little bit extra bit of foliage. And there we go. With that, the dining room is done, and I think it looks perfect. But even with all those details in, my favorite part of this is still the fact that we can see the main castle from this area. And if we look to our right as well, we also get this awesome view of the mountains. But after that was done, I spent the next couple of hours quickly speed running through the rest of the house. I quickly built an office space for some meetings. I built up a really awesome common room for the king that leads directly up to his bedroom. And I also built up a private library slash study area. I also made sure to add a downstairs bathroom for all of the castle workers as well. This one being a little bit bigger than the top one since more people use it. And then I went ahead and finished up making the king's bedroom that I mentioned just a few seconds ago. And honestly, the view from up here is also really cool. After that, it was time to whip up a little dining area downstairs also for the castle workers so they have a place to eat. And then I also took a few minutes on stream to decorate the interior of the back wall, that really long empty section. And I figured this would make a lot of sense if this was used for extra storage and things, so I threw down a bunch of shelves and some pots everywhere and some extra tables and chairs. Then I came into one of the back rooms of the castle and I actually divided it into a couple of different sections. That way we could have a few different rooms for some separate bedrooms, again for the castle workers. And then last but not least, it was time to put in the kitchen. This actually ended up being one of my least favorite parts of the build. I really could have done a lot better with this one, but I was really running out of time and I kind of had to rush through this process, so maybe we'll come back and visit this later and turn it into something much nicer. But with that, our castle is complete, and this might be the first time on my channel where not only have we completed an entire build in a video, but in that same video we completed the entire interior. So I am very happy with the way all these different rooms turned out, and I hope you guys are too. Again, if you want to download this build for yourself, consider checking out my Patreon, which will be linked in the top of the description. And if you have any questions about the mods or resource packs I use. You can also check that out down below by clicking the link to my Modrinth page. After 1 year in our hardcore world, we have finally outgrown our XP farm. So today we are going to be building a much better one in the end dimension. Now, before we get started with the main part of today's video, there is something that is actually kind of bugging me. And that is this section right here. Our pathway leading up to the vineyard and to our villager trading hall kind of just stops. And I would really like to continue to bring this down all the way down to where we are eventually going to have a bridge leading to the main island. So just like last episode and many episodes before, we are going to start taking down a bunch of trees to make room for the remainder of the pathway. Guys, I have tried very hard to do something other than cut down trees for the beginning part of an episode, but somehow, no matter how hard I try, I always find myself in this position. Alright, I think we've got all of the trees removed that we will need to have removed for now. So I am going to briefly fly back up to our vineyard here, and I'm going to take a little peep, good God, my inventory, into my... yet another chest monster we have forming over in this area. And then I am going to grab a bunch of this coarse dirt that we have. Do we have... Okay, we have a couple stacks. We have a few stacks of mud. I think we're in business. There we go. So we'll throw some mud in here as well. And then we'll take all of this mud and coarse dirt, and we're just going to begin placing in the new pathway. After about an hour of placing down coarse dirt and packed mud, we are finally ready to start refining this pathway here. And I'm going to do that by coming in a few different places here and adding in some rock work on the sides to help better blend it in with the rest of the landscape. Now, I don't want to do too much work on the sides here because eventually I would actually like to transform this entire cliffside into something a lot more detailed and custom. So we're really only going to be messing with the very edges of the pathways because, of course, I want to leave room for some bigger things in the future. However, we will have some spots like this one where it is important that we add in a good bit of rock detailing because we don't want it just hovering off of the ground like this. We need it to be connected. But throughout this whole process, we're just going to be using a very basic template of stone, mossy cobblestone, and moss to help us blend the rocks in with the greenery. But there we go. Now the pathway is looking a lot better and we have a much more logical way to travel to the top of the hill here. But before we move on, I'm just going to come up to our chests here and try to grab a couple pieces of bone meal, and we're just going to come in and start spamming that kind of along the pathway here to make it look like the rest of the land that's outside of the path is kind of overgrown. This is also going to help us hide any flaws we may have in our little rock work that we did here. And then just to make sure we get the green colors that we want, I'm going to go back through and remove any of the wildflowers that spawned while we were bone mealing. But alright, with our pathway done and out of the way, it's time to actually start resource collecting for the main project of this video. And today we actually have our work cut out for us because we're going to be needing over 50,000 pieces of white stained glass, which means we have a lot of digging in our future. I need a ton of sand. Alright, so here we are arriving at speed bump number 1. I have actually already filled up all of these shulker boxes with sand, which is great. We're making good progress. The only issue is I need so much more space to transport all this sand, and we literally just don't have enough room for 50,000 blocks right now. So I'm going to travel all the way back home. We're going to stop at our current XP farm to get our tools mended up, and then we are actually going to prematurely head into the end dimension here to go hunting for some shulkers, for some shulker shells, because if we want to continue this project, I need the inventory space, so we're going to need a lot more shulker boxes. Now, if you're wondering why I'm collecting chorus fruit right now, I figured since we're on our way to go collect shulker boxes, we might as well grab this while we're at it, because we actually will be requiring some popped chorus fruit later in the video. And we're going to be needing that to help us craft some end rods. We're going to end up collecting blaze rods at some point as well, and we're going to be using these end rods that we get to help us illuminate the build. You guys will see how it comes into play later. But yeah, I just figured, you know, we're on the way, so we might as well grab it while we're at it. But with some chorus fruit collected, it's time to actually start raiding a few end cities. And while we're doing this, I wanted to briefly mention a new data pack I'm adding to my world, which I'm very excited about. I've seen a lot of other bigger YouTubers using this data pack to help them save time, so I figured I would try it out. But it's a pack called double shulker shells, and this basically makes it so that every time a shulker drops a shulker shell, there will always be 2 instead of 1, so you can immediately make a full shulker box instead of coming out of the end with an odd number of shells and, you know, having a couple left over. However, as far as I'm aware, this does not change the drop rate of shells, which means there's still a chance that when you kill a shulker, you get nothing. So it's basically either you get a full shulker box or you get none at all. Of course, the chances of the drop are increased if you have looting on your sword like I do, but this is definitely going to be a massive time saver, and honestly, it's kind of a feature I feel should just be in the base game. Alright, and flying out of the end here with a few successful end city raids under our belt, we have 44 shulker shells to our name, which means we get 22 new shulker boxes. I will definitely take that. This is going to help out a lot with transporting items. And you know, as I'm placing down all these shulker boxes, getting ready to settle in for another 4-hour sand mining session, I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's time we made a sand duper. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that idea. Now, as I was collecting sand, I realized that a big waste of time here would be the fact that I was going to have to smelt all of this sand down into glass afterwards. So instead of waiting until I was done collecting, I decided to quickly take a break and run up to the mountains to collect a bunch of coal. That way we could have a bunch of furnaces running while we collect the rest of the sand, so we could be obtaining said sand while simultaneously smelting it down into glass, ultimately saving us a couple hours of just waiting around for everything to smelt down. But there we go, after hours upon hours of mining sand and smelting it down, we have managed to successfully fill up 34 shulker boxes full of glass. This was definitely the most tedious part of this process, and I'm really happy we got it out of the way. But this is the part of the video where I ask you to subscribe to the channel, because that was not fun, and I would really appreciate your support on this video. But moving on, it's time to finish up the glass portion of this video by converting all this glass to white stained glass. Now, normally what I would do to get white dye is just AFK here at our bone meal and moss farm, but as far as collecting actual bone meal goes, this farm is incredibly inefficient. Most of the time, I just use it to collect moss, and I only actually use it for white dye if I only need like a stack or 2 of something. And I actually really need to invest in building a wither skeleton farm, because not only would that get us basically infinite amounts of coal and wither skeleton skulls, but it would actually also work as a bone meal farm that would just be a lot more efficient than this one is. But for now, instead of doing that, we're actually just going to head into the Nether, and I'm just going to start scooping up as much bone blocks as possible. And returning home here, I'm going to go ahead and say that was a pretty successful trip. I completely forgot I updated to 1.21.6, so the dried gas was a really nice surprise. And of course, we got a ton of bone blocks. I really hope this is enough. I have absolutely no idea, but we're gonna try it out regardless. So I'm just gonna spend the next few minutes here standing at my crafting table, transforming all this glass into white stained glass. But with all of these shulker boxes full, we are finally free to move on to collecting the next item we need, which is those end rods I mentioned earlier. Now, unfortunately, I did miscalculate how much coarse fruit I'm going to need, so we actually have to quickly run back into the end to finish collecting the last few stacks that we need. But with that little side quest out of the way, we are actually good to head into the Nether, and we are going to begin the hunt for some blaze rods. Now, fortunately, this shouldn't take us too long because I do know of a location where we have a blaze spawner, so I'm gonna head right out to that. I'm going to try to build out a little bit of a bigger spawning platform, and we're just going to start farming as many blazes as possible. We are cruising through this process now. I mean, that took nowhere near as long as I thought it was going to. Another step in this process that we can blow out pretty quickly is just heading home and smelting all of our coarse fruit into pop coarse fruit, and then we'll just combine that with our newly acquired blaze rods, and we will finally end up with our end rods. Now, of course, this wouldn't be an Incy video without the need for us to go collect some tuff and diorite and other stone blocks. I thought I had some tuff left over from my previous builds, but we've actually completely used up our supply, so we're gonna have to head back down into the caves, set up a beacon, realize we built the beacon in the wrong location, tear it down and rebuild it a second time, and then begin the process of insta-mining our tuff. After that, we are on to exploring some caves to find some veins of diorite, and then finally, to complete this trifecta of blocks, to get ourselves the triple crown here, we're going to head back up to our mountain mining area, and we're going to collect a bunch of cobblestone. But you guys have seen me do this 100 times at this point, so I'm just gonna skip to the part in the video where this is done. Now, before we can move on from the rock collecting portion of this video, there is one block we still need to collect that we are all familiar with here on this channel. The one block to rule them all, and I am of course talking about calcite. We have gotten so much value out of calcite in this series so far, it might actually be my new favorite block in the game. But speaking of getting an insane amount of value, I figured now would be the perfect time to bring up my Patreon. For just $10 a month, you guys get access to every single thing I have ever built in hardcore Minecraft, as well as other rewards like exclusive Discord roles and behind the scenes content and videos. So again, for just $10, you get access to years worth of my work, and you guys can cancel your subscription at any time with no strings attached. And I'd like to take a moment to personally thank each and every one of my Patreon members and channel members. You guys are a massive reason as to why I'm able to continue to do this for a job, and I am just eternally grateful for all your support. So thank you for everything you not only do for me, but what you do for everybody else who watches my videos by allowing them to continue to have these videos to watch. But shameless plugs aside, we are finally done collecting calcite and free to move on to the next block we need. And so we are going to fly out to the nearest pale garden so we can start devouring some pale oak logs. Now, I wish I could say that logs and planks are the only thing we need, but that's actually not the case. In fact, we actually don't need any logs or planks. What we need, unfortunately, is pale oak trapdoors, and a lot of them. So I've actually got quite an extensive mining session ahead of me because we're going to need like 3 times more wood than usual. But alright, there we go. That's done, and that wasn't actually anywhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. I kind of just threw on a podcast and went ham for 2 hours and we got it done. But moving through our to-do list here, we're going to quickly stop at a cherry grove to collect some cherry leaves because we're going to be needing those as well. I haven't really talked a lot about this Enderman farm that we're making today, but it's basically going to be kind of like a floating garden situation, except all of the leaves and foliage are going to be this pinkish and purple color to kind of match the theme of the end. And so to make sure we we stick with that pink and purple theme, I actually have to fly all the way out to our mesa biome, and I have to collect some terracotta, then take it home, and after turning it into pink terracotta, smelt it down so we can get pink glazed terracotta. And I'm gonna use this block to help us kind of get a little bit more variation in the foliage. Pink glazed terracotta kind of looks like leaves at a distance, so I'm going to use that and try it out. But while we wait for our terracotta to smelt up, we're just going to grab a couple other blocks that we need, some smaller things such as oak trap doors. And for the first time ever today, we're actually going to be needing a bit of lodestone, which I've never actually used in a build before, so I'm excited to see how that turns out. And we're also going to take a bunch of our stone blocks here and turn them into their wall and stair variants, because we'll be needing a bunch of those as well to create kind of like the pillars of the garden area. But with that, we are done collecting blocks and we are almost ready to start building. The last thing we need to do is just transfer all of these shulker boxes that hold the items into the end dimension, so we don't have to travel back and forth between dimensions to build, and then we'll be good to go. Now, we do need to do something quite dangerous here. I need to place down a water bucket and then take some leaves and attempt to pillar down to right above the void. This is my least favorite part of Enderman farms. I can't stand doing anything above the void because there's literally no coming back from it. This is probably the easiest way to die in hardcore. But now we just need to bridge out as far as possible, kind of get right in the middle between where the end island is and where the end rings start. It's just, good lord, this is terrifying. I absolutely hate bridging over the void, but I mean, honestly, look at where we stopped. I mean, it's kind of peaceful being out here like all alone by ourselves. I mean, literally you can't see any land in any direction, and you just have these beautiful vistas of complementary reimagined shaders in the end. It's actually pretty cool looking. But now I just need to build out this little leaf platform so we can place our shulker boxes down, and then it will finally be time to start building. The bulk of the build is done and it looks really good, but I don't want to show it to you just yet because we're not quite finished with the build itself. Endermen are spawning at the top, but right now they have no reason to actually fall into the chamber, so I just built up this little temporary killing area here for us, and we're gonna get ourselves some ender pearls so that way we can spawn an endermite in, trap it, and name tag it so the enderman will actually fall down into the killing chamber itself. But there we go, we'll just name tag this bad bear and stick him in a minecart, and then we can get rid of the extra wool. Now, with that done, there is one more thing we're going to need, and for that we will actually need a few pieces of glass, an eye of ender, and we'll need one of the gas tiers we got from inside the nether earlier. Reason being is we are actually making an end crystal for the first time in our hardcore world. And I'm doing this because I'm using complementary reimagined shaders with Euphoria patches. Euphoria patches basically just adds a bunch of new visual improvements to the already existing roster of visual improvements by complementary shaders, including these really cool like pillars of light that come off end crystals. So I'm hoping if we place this down, oh my god. Oh, dude. What? That is so much better. You can't even see the purple glass that we have in here that traps the Enderman. Hold on, let's take a step back, go a ways away from the thing for a second here. Look at it going through the roof. Oh my god, that made the build. It hides the killing chamber perfectly. Oh man, okay, but now what I need to do is I have this little seal at the top of the build here. We're gonna try to remove that without angering any of these Endermen, and then they should all start falling down. And yeah, there we are. Dude, this is such a euphoric looking killing chamber that we have here. And no, there's no collection system for the ender pearls, but I'm never really going to use them anyways, and they'll just despawn, so it's not that big of a deal. However, I am noticing a little bit of an issue. So, Endermen can't spawn on glass, but they can teleport to it, which means that when our Endermen are hitting the ground here, because there's so much space of teleportable blocks outside of the killing chamber, when they hit the ground and take damage, they're basically defaulting to trying to, find a way to stop getting hurt. So they're teleporting outside of the killing chamber and onto the surrounding areas. Now all these Endermen, since they're already so damaged, they can just be one shot, so that's not really that big of a deal, but I would like a way to maybe change this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly home and head out to our swamp biome, and I'm going to kill a bunch of slimes to get slime balls for slime blocks. And I'm hoping that if we put slime blocks at the bottom of the build, the Enderman will fall down and bounce and stay in the chamber instead of taking damage. I'm not sure how the slime blocks are actually going to look in the build. Everything is made of glass, so they are going to be visible, but I'm hoping that all of the visual effects we have going on will hide the slime blocks, at least for when we have shaders on, and most of the time I play with shaders on anyway, so if it hides it well, it's not really going to be an issue either. But alright, let's go ahead and replace the inner landing pad with our slime blocks here, and yeah, without shaders, this looks pretty terrible, not gonna lie. I mean, I know what it is, but at least it is stopping them from taking fall damage. They are bouncing a little bit, but they're staying in the killing chamber, which is all we really needed it to do. Now let's go ahead and turn our complementary shaders back on. Oh my god, it's perfect. Dude, you can't even, the slime blocks are basically invisible. You can't even see them. They're just as transparent as the glass. There's like a tiny, slight little green hue, but that's it. But yeah, man, I think it's basically what, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, that was close. That could have been the end of the series right there. Okay, so problem number 2 with this farm. Now we have made it so that they don't take damage when they land, but our fire aspect sword, when they take the fire tick damage, they still want to teleport out. So I guess that means we are going back home once again, and we're going to have to enchant a new sword at our library. Don't ask me why our mending villager is a zombie librarian. I don't know. We'll figure that out in another episode. I don't have time for you right now, dude. Fortunately, though, I had a few mending books left over from previous trades, so I got sharpness 4, unbreaking 3, and mending on this sword. And if we go back to the Enderman farm and try this new one out, this one seems to be working fine. No more Endermen are teleporting out, so we have officially fixed our problem. The only thing is, it takes a lot of strikes to kill these guys, and that's not very efficient. So what I'll probably do in between episodes is put netherite on this sword and try to add sweeping edge to it. That way we can kill them all at once. It'll still take 2 to 3 hits, which is not as efficient as it would be if we didn't have slime blocks, but honestly, I think this is a good compromise for just how visually cool this build is. I think it's worth it. But that is going to do it for today's episode. I hope you all have enjoyed. I am incredibly happy with how this build turned out. It just looks so cool, and I think it's a lot better than my previous XP farm. I also added a few extra clouds in the background here. I forgot to mention this in the video, but I just wanted to add a few other background pieces, and I think these turned out really cool as well. In fact, I love this build so much that I think we're going to base our entire end transformation off of this concept. I love the idea of the entirety of the end being this kind of like cloud city looking thing, and I think it's just gonna look sick when we have, you know, all these clouds with buildings floating on them everywhere and hanging gardens all over the place. It's gonna be really cool, but we're gonna save that for a couple episodes down the line. Our current gold farm looks terrible, so today we're going to be fixing that. Now, before we start actually getting into the gold farm here, I just wanted to quickly mention I finally, in between episodes, got around to making a sword that is capable of safely killing our enderman in our enderman farm, which if you didn't watch my last video where I built this thing, you definitely should, because it's one of my most favorite builds ever. But now we actually have a safe way to gain a ton of experience. But anyways, enderman farms aside, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to stop back at home, and we're going to collect a few of our shulker boxes here. I feel like 2 would be okay, maybe 3. Grab another one just in case. And then we're going to run over to our secondary nether portal, and then unfortunately we are going to have to begin tearing down the gold farm that we have right now, because we are going to be needing all of these resources to help us build the new one. Now, my favorite thing about this part in the video is that tearing down the old gold farm requires me to literally use 0% of my brain. However, the small part of my brain that was still active during this process got to thinking. As I was taking this thing down, I noticed I was taking a lot of damage and having to burn through all of my food because of the magma blocks. So I think what we're going to do after this is try to get some boots with Frostwalker on them, and hopefully that will solve the issue. And I'm also hoping that a lot of the supplies we gather from this old farm will take us pretty far into the item collecting portion of this video that will happen later on. Alright, so that is the gold farm torn down. We got all our leftover rotten flesh and swords sitting on the ground there. We have everything inside of our inventory. I actually grabbed an extra shulker box, but I didn't end up needing to use it, which is great. And we actually have a bunch of spare gold. So before we continue, I'm going to come back into the overworld here, and we're going to make a quick stop at the farming district because I want to grab some golden carrots. Now, we have a bunch of steak here that I haven't used yet, so I really don't need any more food, but golden carrots just make me feel a little bit more rich, and I enjoy that feeling, so we're going to start eating these guys instead. But now it's time we started making those Frostwalker boots that I was talking about earlier. The only issue is that this is going to be a much longer process than I thought, because I'm just now discovering you can't actually get Frostwalker through an enchantment table, which means we're going to have to find a villager and convert him to a Frostwalker librarian. And I really don't feel like dealing with breeding villagers today, so we're going to utilize that happy gas we got in the last episode. Well, he's not happy yet. He's dried right now, but he will be happy. So there are a few things we're going to need to prep for him. The first of which is a lead. Oh my god, do I not have leads? Uh-oh. Oh, thank god. Okay. We're also going to be needing this pumpkin in a minute, and I'm going to need some light blue dye. Let's go ahead and craft that up real quick. We'll also need 2 pieces of glass. Fortunately, we have that right there. Gonna need a fence. And we're out of leather, which means we need to make a sacrifice today. I'm sorry, you are the chosen one. Oh, okay, we're gonna need one more. The lag over here from fresh animations is insane. Hey! Hey! 2? That's fine. Fortunately, both of you have jobs, so I can't steal you. Anyways, we'll just grab one of these guys. And there we go, we got ourselves some light blue wool. All of that so I can craft up this saddle here. I guess it's a harness. Saddle, harness, same thing. And then the last thing we need is just 2 snow blocks here. Let's grab those. Also going to need a couple more fences here. Forgot about that. And then what I'm going to do is set up a little temporary chamber here. Then we are just going to build ourselves a snow golem. I'm going to get out my fortune shovel, and we are going to collect as many snowballs as possible because we're going to use this to tame the happy ghast. All right, hopefully that's enough. I've got actually more than a full shulker box. That should be plenty. I don't know how much we need, but I'm playing it safe anyways. Thank you, sir, for your service. Look at me, please. Thank you for your service. I free you from this world. Alright, with the happy gas prep out of the way, it is now time to actually acquire the creature. And I think a really cool place to have him grow up would be over at our little, very janky coral reef that we have here. I have to work on this, man. I mean, from standing in here, it looks good. Anyways, we'll just put him down here. Oh. Alright, there we go. Now we just wait around until he grows up. And yeah, now we wait. And here we are, after 20 minutes of waiting, we have acquired ourselves a happy ghast. So cool to finally see these guys in my world. I've been waiting to add this update for a while, and I'm really happy it's here. But now we got to hop on him here, and we have to fly all the way over to this acacia village. This acacia village is actually where we did our first raid. I'm not sure if anybody's still alive there. If they're not, we'll move on to the plains village. But we're going to start heading out, and we're going to use this guy to transport the villagers. Okay, here we go, flying in. We've got one dude left. There's one guy left. Let's hurry up and land. We will get this dude in a boat, just like that. And we are just going to hook this guy up to the ghast. And there we go. Look at that. We got like a little hot air balloon thing. But all right, time for a long flight home. Hopefully this goes well. I really hope we don't drop him. But there we go. Look at that screenshot. Gorgeous. But all right, so we're just going to land our guy on the bridge here for a minute, and I'm gonna head over to our chest here, grab a bunch of dirt, and then what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to just build up a temporary dirt pathway through the library here and over to the chamber where we want this villager to go. I'm doing this just because I don't want to have to deal with him escaping and trying to really fight my way to get him into his spot, so we're basically just gonna lead him straight there, and we'll take this down when we're done. But all right, we got all the dirt down. Now it's time to just start placing this lectern down over and over until we finally get the enchantment we want, which is Frostwalker 2. But after a while of cycling through the lectern and doing a bunch of other trades to get emeralds with my other villagers, we finally got a dude who had Frostwalker 2. 60 emeralds? Who does this guy think he is? I mean, I'll take it because, you know, I don't want to spend too much time on this. This actually only took 20 minutes as it was, but we're gonna have to convert that guy to a zombie villager to get some deals because that's a bit absurd. But anyways, we'll take the lectern here and we will use this to lure him over to his little trading chamber, his new little desk job. Throw the trapdoor down, and just like that, he should be stuck in there. Great. This went really well. I feel like something bad is going to happen. I feel like bad karma has to catch up to me now. Dealing with villagers is never this easy, so I don't know. I feel a little weirded out. But anyways, let's clean up our mess here throughout the trading hall. And then for now, we are just going to park our happy ghast over in the flower fields by our vineyard because we are done using him for now. Look at him. There he goes. Look how happy he is. He loves it in the flowers. But now that we have Frostwalker 2, it's time to make the rest of the boots. So I'm gonna grab some lapis and some extra books just in case we need them. I'm also gonna grab one of our extra mending books so we can just slap that on. And then we are going to head down to our super secret valuable storage room. And I'm gonna bring about 12 diamonds with me just in case we need to make some extra pairs of boots and then combine them later. But all right, after a lot of enchanting and a lot of using the grindstone and combining things in an anvil, we finally have our pair of Frostwalker boots. Now, they don't have the highest level of feather falling, which is kind of concerning. They're also not netherite yet, so they're not perfect by any means, but Frostwalker 2, protection 4, feather falling 2, unbreaking 3, and mending is not bad. But now that we have our Frostwalker boots, it's time to move on with the block collecting portion of this video. And to save us a little bit of time, I'm going to try to break this up into a couple different sections. And we're going to start with collecting all the blocks we need from the Nether. That way we're only making one trip between dimensions. All right, so I've grabbed us a few more shulker boxes here. And the first block from the Nether we're going to try to get is actually magma blocks because I've already got a few of them right in here. Actually, I've got almost 2 shulker boxes full. Unfortunately though, that's nowhere near enough. And we're going to need to grab some more shulker boxes because we need over 10,000 pieces of this. And with that, we were off on our Nether adventure. Fortunately, I was coming across a lot of magma block veins and most of them were pretty big. So I never ended up having to travel very far in order to collect all these blocks. And since we were already out here in the Nether wastes, I decided to also collect some Nether quartz ore because we're going to be needing it later for some redstone components. But once that was done, we left the Nether and we made a quick pit stop at the Enderman farm to repair our pickaxe. After that, it was back to the Nether to collect some soul sand. We were also going to need a lava bucket, so I picked that up as well. And then we also hunted down some of these giant skeletons to collect bone blocks, because we were going to have to make some water elevators, which would require fully grown kelp, so we were going to need a lot of bone meal. And we also managed to pick up another 11 dried gas along the way. But anyways, it's now time to head over to the Nether fortress we've been terraforming in order to get some wither skeleton skulls. And this time I needed 9 of them, which I was not looking forward to collecting. And we need them because this farm, in order to work properly, it actually requires beacons. We need to be able to have strength and regeneration on, because we're going to be swinging our sword so much that we're going to be running out of hunger pretty quickly, and there's also a chance this farm will cause us a little bit of damage if any of the piglins hit us. So having regen on is also just going to help protect us. And we're also going to be having a resistance beacon as well, just for a third added layer of protection. Well, if you couldn't tell by this massive platform we now have, this was not a quick process like I thought it was going to be. This actually took a couple hours to be exact, and to be honest with you, for 9 wither skeleton skulls, that's really not that bad. We also managed to get almost a stack of blaze rods, and look at all the bones and coal we got. I mean, that's pretty good too. I really do need a wither skeleton farm. But that's about all the blocks we need from the Nether, so it's time to head back home. Now, I do still need to craft up those beacons, and in order to do that, I need to get obsidian. Now, again, for the beacons, I really only need 9 pieces. However, for the rest of this gold farm, I am going to need about 730 pieces of obsidian. So I figured while we're getting the obsidian for the beacons, we might as well just grab the obsidian for the rest of the build. And let me tell you something. I am not looking forward to this. And never before in my life has a feeling of disinterest in something been so quickly and immediately validated. Mining over 700 pieces of obsidian was easily the worst part of this entire video. I don't even want to talk about how long it took, even with efficiency 5, but hey, I mean, at least you guys get a cool time lapse or something, right? But once we were finally done with this very exhausting process, I went straight into the end to kill the 3 different withers, collect the nether stars, and head home and craft up our beacons. Now that we've collected our 3 beacons, it's time to move on with the next segment of today's video, which is collecting all the redstone components for the build. And to do that, we're going to start over here in the mining district, and we're actually going to begin by laying out all of this nether quartz that we got. Okay, I already know this is way too much. We definitely have a surplus of quartz here, but honestly, when I was in the nether collecting magma blocks, I saw a bunch of this quartz, so I just decided to scoop it up anyways. We will need some for some redstone components, but we're definitely not going to use this much. And there we go. We got over 11 stacks of quartz, and we didn't even use up all of our nether quartz ore, so we're definitely good to go. Now that we have that, we can start crafting up all the components. And I just realized we actually have a lot of this already ready in our redstone shulker box, which is great. Like, for example, we're going to need 76 pieces of redstone dust, so we'll get that out real quick. We are also going to need 27 redstone repeaters. Fortunately, we already have those right there. We are going to need 21 redstone comparators. Unfortunately, we only have 12, so we are going to need to whip up the supplies to make a few new ones. Luckily for us, that should be fairly easy. We'll also be needing exactly 19 redstone torches, so it's nice that we have that number left over. We're also going to need 20 buttons, 2 levers. We'll also need a singular piston. Also need to make a bow for a dispenser. Let's go ahead and make one of those. And then we are going to craft up 8 more regular pistons, and then use some of the last of our slime blocks to make 8 sticky pistons. And then we're just going to hide all of these away in our shulker box for now. And then we're going to grab a bunch of our leftover wood from our little vineyard project. If I can even find any more, there we go. And then we're going to start turning all of these into planks, because we are going to need 65 chests. So literally a perfect stack and 1. There we go. But we are not done yet. We need to make an additional 70 chests, and we need to do that in order to turn the rest of them into hoppers. We need 70 hoppers, which is kind of insane to think about. And come to think of it, we may not have enough iron on hand. I have to hope I find some spare. Okay, wait, there's a little bit. Got another stack. Hopefully this is enough. I think, oh my gosh, we had enough for exactly 70. It's scripted. It's all scripted. Now all that's left to do is get all the other miscellaneous materials. But unfortunately, we do have a lot of those. And I don't want to bore you guys with a 4-hour-long segment of me collecting random items. But a long story short, I went out and I got 5 ladders and 5 ender pearls to help us get on the nether roof. We also got a bunch of temporary items like 10 pieces of kelp, 1 stair, 192 temporary building blocks, 256 pieces of scaffolding, 1 piece of sand, 1 ender chest, 1 cactus, a singular armor stand, 2 water buckets, 2 walls, 2 composters, 4 carpets, 7 fences, 8 powdered snow buckets, 11 fence gates, 12 slime blocks, 17 honey blocks, 17 plosses of immovable blocks, we used glazed terracotta, 18 turtle eggs, 22 boats, 31 pieces of packed ice, 83 smooth stone slabs, 212 iron blocks. Thank God for our iron farm. If we didn't have that, I'm not even gonna let my brain go there. 426 trapdoors, 2,012 pieces of glass, and finally 4,335 pieces of temporary building blocks. But alright, with those last smooth stone blocks collected, we should have all the items we need to start building in all of these different shulker boxes here. But if we find that we're missing anything, we can just go back later and collect what we need. But with everything scooped up, it's time to fly over to our secondary nether portal again. Actually, before we do that, I forgot one very important thing that we need. That was close. Okay, anyways, let's get ourselves an iron ingot and then a piece of gravel for some flint and a flint and steel because we need a way to get in and out of the nether in case something goes wrong. We're going to be on the nether roof, so that is a pretty important item to have. Now, I did bring enough supplies to get us in and out of the nether roof and add a few more portals around, but I'm going to try to find a location here that is better for the gold farm, but still relatively close by. We just have to make sure we're in the nether wastes as we build the entire farm. And after searching around for a little bit, I think right here will do good. Literally right where we're standing will be the center. I'm gonna mark that with our orange shulker box just for now. Then I'm gonna come over here and place down all of our other shulker boxes that have our building items. And with that, we're good to get this party started. We're gonna start this process by building an absolutely massive tower of nether portals, stretching up to almost the build height. And on each of these layers, we're going to be placing a piece of glass with a turtle egg on top. On the outside of all these portals, we're going to be placing in the spawning platforms, so that's why we have a turtle egg in the center. It's to attract all the piglins into the center of the build, so they'll try to crush the turtle egg and they'll end up all walking through the portal. But in order for that to work successfully, we also have to come in and surround the turtle eggs with trapdoors. The piglins need to be under the impression that they can actually get to the egg, so the trapdoors are going to make them think there's a full block there and they'll try to walk forward. But after that, it's time to actually put in the spawning platforms, and we're going to be using all of those magma blocks we collected earlier in the video. And let me tell you something, guys, those frostwalker boots were definitely worth it. I know for you this is probably a rather quick time lapse, but this actually took a couple of hours for me, and not getting my tootsies burnt on all of the magma blocks saved us a lot of food and a lot of frustration. But after the spawning platforms were done, we came up to the top of the build and placed in a huge layer of glass to prevent gas spawns. After that, we went to the corresponding coordinates in the overworld and we began building the overworld section of this build. And this was basically a massive transportation tower that would take all of the piglins that were going through the nether portals, put them into the overworld, send them up a bubble column and into another nether portal which we built at the top that would take them back into the nether where we built our killing chamber. After the killing chamber was complete, it was then time to move on to the sorting system, and once we were done with that, the farm would be complete. Alright, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this thing absolutely sucked to build. I mean, this was top 10 worst Minecraft experiences ever. The boat system up here, let me go into free cam real quick, hold on. This boats, transporting the boats to get them to fit in there properly, 2 hours. It took me 2 hours. There were multiple portals up here and I was going in and out trying to follow a tutorial, and there were pistons. God, there were so many pistons. What we need to do now is expand this storage system here down by a couple of blocks. So we're gonna build some scaffolding all the way up so we can work going down, and we'll build out this way a couple blocks. Hopefully that'll reach. I have no idea. We've got to make a quick pit stop back at the house because I actually ran out of chests, which I guess also means I'm going to run out of hoppers, so I'm going to need to make some of those as well. There we go. Get about 2 stacks of each. That should be plenty. Big emphasis on should there. While we're here at home, we're going to stop over in the entertainment district, and we are going to restock ourselves on a bunch of fireworks here so we can continue to fly around. We're also going to swing by the Ender here to get our elytra repaired. But now we are back into the Nether, and now we just finish putting in the last of these chests, and then we should be good to put in the last of the hoppers. All right, there we go. Now the last thing we actually need to do is set up the item filters by putting in gold and setting them to filter out the ingots and nuggets. But I'm actually out of gold because if you guys remember, I used it all to make golden carrots, so we don't have any gold, which means it is time to actually get the farm started. So we're gonna come in here and we're just gonna light up every single Nether portal on the way down. I actually don't know if this flint and steel is gonna last. Oh my god, it's not. This might be an issue. Yep, sure was. I guess it's back to the overworld for a minute, and we'll just make one of those. You know what? We're gonna make 2 of those, you know, just to be safe. Oh my god. Oh, this is bad. Oh, hello everybody. Okay. Remain calm. You go away. You go away. You go away. And you go away. Perfect. All right. Moment of truth. Is the farm working? Let's fly up to the killing chamber. Please, dear God, please. Oh, I believe so. Yes, I do believe it is working. Oh my god. There we go. Look at this. Look at how many we're getting. Oh my god. So if you guys didn't know or couldn't figure it out throughout the video, this is a gold farm designed by Dashpum, which means it also doubles, if you couldn't tell already, as an insane XP farm. This has essentially rendered our Ender useless for experience, but that build is still super cool and I absolutely love it, so we're gonna keep it around. Plus, it's always good to just have access to a bunch of Ender pearls as well. But I'm gonna go AFK here for a bit, and we're gonna see just how many levels and just how much gold we can get. Alright, so I've been here for about 2 to 3 hours, and I may have accidentally almost got 300 levels of experience. This farm is nuts. But anyways, let me show you what we have collected in that time. Not all of these chests, but a lot of them are full. Completely full with golden nuggets. These ones here are not, because these 3 rows are for extra storage for golden ingots. We did get a good amount of those, not as much as I would have liked. I also did put looting 3 on our sweeping edge sword here, so we do get triple the drops, but most of the bottom rows of these chests here are completely filled with golden nuggets. This is more than we could ever ask for, honestly. And most of the second row chests here are also filled, and in some cases, even the 3rd and 4th row chests are completely filled with golden nuggets. So that is absolutely insane. But anyways, let's collect all of our shulker boxes, and it's time we actually start designing the exterior of this farm. All right, so after spending a couple hours in a creative testing world, I have come up with a design for the gold farm that I am pretty happy with. And I did make a schematic for it, so we're going to load it up and check the material list here. See what we're working with. That... Oh, I thought we were almost done with the video. I don't know why I was acting surprised. I'm the one who designed this build. This is my fault. But regardless, I just went from almost being done with this video to needing a wither skeleton farm, a blaze farm, a super smelter, and a sand duper. So with a newfound sense of urgency, I immediately got started on collecting all the items I would need to build the blaze farms. Fortunately, blaze farms are a super simple build, so collecting all of the necessary items didn't take long at all. And before I knew it, I was back into the Nether, searching for the blaze spawners themselves. Once I had found the perfect location, it was time to start building. And although the blaze farm build itself is simple, dealing with constantly being set on fire was not. But fortunately, after a few very close calls of falling in the lava and nearly dying, we managed to complete the first blaze farm, and I began to AFK. But as I was doing this, I realized we were not getting blaze rods nearly as quickly as we needed to in order to acquire acquire the over 22,000 pieces of end rods that we needed. And after a few minutes, I started to understand that we were going to need a second blaze farm. Fortunately, there was another spawner directly next to the first one we found, so I immediately got to building. And once I was done with that, I also decided to slab off a bunch of the surrounding nether fortress as well, just in case there were some extra blaze spawns happening that were going to mess with the rates of these two farms. But once that was done, all that was left to do was let the blazes pile up for a few minutes and then go harvest them with our looting sword. Okay, great. So now that we have all the blaze rods we need, it's time to head over to collect the other half of the end rods, which is coarse fruit. Now, I think I'm actually going to mine all of this by hand because we can collect it fast enough that we shouldn't actually need a coarse fruit farm. So we're just going to head into the end and I'm going to use my trusty axe to get us all the coarse fruit. And while we do this, I just want to take a moment to give a special shout out to all my Patreon members and channel members. If I've said it once before, then I've said it 100 times. You guys are the lifeblood of this channel and you really help to keep it running in the months where I'm not uploading as much or not as active on YouTube. And to the rest of my subscribers, I just want to have a quick heart-to-heart with you real quick and say that I am very sorry for having not uploaded in all of November. This is the longest break I've taken away from YouTube, and I have to be honest, I've really missed posting. Since the last time you saw me, guys, I've actually gotten sick 3 or 4 different times. I keep re-catching the same bug, which has really affected my blood sugars and made it very difficult for me to actually record and get work done. But I just want you guys to know I'm not going anywhere and I will be posting on YouTube for as long as I possibly can. So if there's ever a time where you're not hearing from me and I'm not as active as normal, just know that something else is most likely going on and I'm hard at work on the next project. I haven't abandoned you guys. So again, I'm sorry for the very long wait and I hope this video has been worth it so far, but we're not done yet. So let's get back to work. But with the coarse fruit collected, the only thing that's left to do is fly home, throw it all into a furnace so we can get popped coarse fruit, and then craft up all of our end rods. But unfortunately, we still have a long ways to go. And the next thing we're going to do is head back into the nether, and we're going to begin looking for a nether fortress that's located in a soul sand valley. Once we found this, after about a half an hour of searching, actually took a lot longer than I thought, we began building something I mentioned earlier in the video, a wither skeleton farm. Now, this wither skeleton farm is going to serve us well for a couple of different reasons. The first of which is wither skeleton skulls. Of course, we'll have basically free access to an infinite amount of beacons with this. The second is that this is also going to act as a bone farm. The bone meal farm we have at home right now isn't very efficient and it would work better as a moss farm. So we're going to completely remove the bone meal aspect of that farm and we're just going to use this one for our bones and bone meal instead. And the third reason why this farm is going to be so great, and the primary reason why we're using it for this video, is because it's also going to act as a coal farm and be our primary source of fuel for the super smelter that we're going to build. Alright, so we've got the wither skeleton farm working. The only thing left to do is sit here and AFK for a good couple of hours. And I say a good couple of hours because even though this thing has really good rates, you have to remember we're dealing with almost 500,000 blocks here. And we're gonna need the bone meal to help us get the dye for all of those. Well, after AFKing at the wither skeleton farm for a couple hours, all of these shulker boxes here are filled with bones, which is pretty great. I also got a ton of shulker boxes full of coal. They're over in the mining district. We're going to be going over there in just a minute because we're going to be needing to build a super smelter. And we also got like 7 stacks of wither skeleton skulls. We'll never need that many beacons, but it'll just be nice to have them. But now what we need to do is actually take a break from AFKing at the farm, and we need to start converting some of these bones into bone meal, and then using said bone meal to get us a bunch of dye. I'm trying to do my best to multitask here. I'm bone mealing these roses while I wait for a bunch of these cocoa beans to grow older. In fact, we can just scoop some of these up here because we're going to need brown dye as well. But the big issue here is I don't actually know how many pieces of dye we need. Again, taking a look at the block list here, we're dealing with almost 500,000 pieces of stained glass. And to be honest with you guys, I don't think this is going to be enough bones. So we're going to spend some time getting a couple different colors of dye that we need, and then we're probably going to build a sand duper and then check out the process of making a super smelter, and then we'll go from there, kind of see where we're at. I'm starting to get very nervous about this project. I may have bitten off more than I can chew, but if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that's a pretty common occurrence. Okay, I actually think we're good to go, and we have a ton of bones left over, which is really good. We used a lot less than I thought we were going to, but all these chests here are filled up with all the yellow dye we should need to convert all the yellow glass. We've got all of our orange dye over in these 4 chests here. Got all of our red dye in this little section of shulker boxes. And then we've got a few shulker boxes of brown dye, as well as a few shulker boxes of white dye. So now that we have all the colors we need, we're going to begin the process of actually getting all that glass. And to be honest with you, this shouldn't be that difficult. It's going to take a while, but it's not a very complicated process. What is that? What is that? What is that? What am I looking at? Why does it look like a horse? Oh my god, it's a villager. Dude, look, it looks... I thought that was some kind of... They added zombie horses back into the game, right? Tell me that does not look like the eye and the snout of a horse with its ears. Minecraft is not a scary game whatsoever. But I swear, one of the most frightening experiences you could ever have is being a 10-plus year veteran of this game and coming across a mob that you do not recognize. Whatever. Okay, whatever. Anyways, the first order of business here is removing all of these chests and all of the items that are in them to get them out of the way, because I want to build the super smelter on this side of the build. That way, it's kind of lined up where we have these giant smokestack furnaces here. And this way, hopefully, the location of the super smelter itself will actually make sense. Plus, it's nice for us to finally have another reason to come over into the mining district, aside from just going downstairs into the underground to go exploring. We'll actually get some use out of these buildings here. After moving all of the chests and clearing out the proper area for the super smelter, it was time to start building. Unfortunately, this one was pretty quick and simple. I began by just digging out a hole in the ground and placing a chest down and 2 lines of hoppers going into them. After that, we lined up all of the furnaces where the smelting would actually be done, and another 2 lines of hoppers going into the sides of them, followed by an additional 2 lines of hoppers on top. Next, it was time to just lay in all of the redstone and minecart rails, and then finally, after adding in all of the chests where the items would go, we put in the hopper minecarts and the build was ready to go. And with that, our super smelter is done. All that's left to do is fill up this chest with coal for fuel, and then we're going to move on over to building the sand duper. I'm going to start by just clearing out a big area for us to build around the portal, and then comes unfortunately one of the most tedious parts of this entire video, which is removing the end portal frames using the TNT method, and we have to just repeat this for all 4 sides. But once that was done, I just added in all the redstone on the ground, built up all the pistons that we were going to use to actually fling the sand into the end portal, and then we added the remaining redstone components on top. The second part of this process was building a chunk loader. Fortunately, that's just another portal with a minecart running in and out of it, and with that we can move on to the end dimension side of this build, which was basically just building up a small platform with water and then adding an item distribution system with a bunch of chests. And just like that, the sand duper was producing sand at an incredibly fast rate. And honestly, thank God for this thing, because there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to collect all this sand by hand. It was literally a statistic impossibility. But once we had completely filled up our shulker boxes with sand, we headed back home to the super smelter and we let it run for a couple of hours. Once all the sand had been converted into glass, we went over to our greenhouse and we began converting the glass once again to all the different colored types of glasses that we needed. Alright, so now guys, this is basically just a rinse and repeat process. I'm gonna have to go back and forth between the end, the super smelter, and our greenhouse here, and we're just going to keep cycling through this process of AFKing at the sand duper to get the sand, smelting it down into glass, and then taking that glass and converting it into colored glass. And we do have a ton of blocks ahead of us, but this process is basically completely automated now, so hopefully it won't take more than a day. 2 weeks. This part of the video took 2 weeks, which is fine. You know, I even extended the super smelter and I was thinking to myself, oh look, this thing can produce 10,000 pieces of glass per hour. And then I started to realize that's still 50 hours of AFKing. And keep in mind, that's 50 active hours. In between each smelting session, I had to then go and move those blocks and manually convert them into the colored blocks. Yeah, listen, you know, you guys know I don't like asking you to subscribe, but could you please subscribe? But anyways, after severely underestimating just how many blocks 500,000 is, I've managed to move all of them over to the Nether, and all of these chests here are completely filled with glass. And with that, guys, we are ready to begin building. So with all of that said, I present to you the new gold farm. everybody, after a month of work and almost 500,000 blocks of glass place, we are done with our gold farm, and it's amazing. I knew it was going to turn out good, but this good, dude, I am over the moon with this build. Let me turn on shaders real quick for you guys. It just looks so ethereal and so cool. This turned out exactly how I wanted it to turn out. And my favorite part about this is how the color palette of the build changes depending on what biome you're in, because yes, this thing is so big it can be seen from multiple different biomes across the Nether. Like here we can check out this side in the Nether waste where everything is red, and it just looks so cool from all angles. But funny enough, I think this thing actually looks the best when we don't have shaders on. You can really see all of the details and all of the branches when all the glass doesn't blend together, so I actually prefer it this way. And check out how it looks on the map, man. It looks like a giant brain from above, which is super sick. And speaking of from above, if we fly up to the top here, you'll notice that I left it pretty flat looking. In fact, it basically just stops. Now obviously that gets us really easy access to the farm, but the main reason why I'm doing this is because I took a little bit of inspiration from the last season of Hermitcraft. Well, I'm going to be taking a little bit of inspiration from the last season of Hermitcraft. BOO had this really cool Nether hub build where he had this kind of like magic looking thing above the main entrance and a bunch of different colors of like magic spewing out in each cardinal direction, which kind of gave the other hermits a visual cue for as to where they should go. And so the reason why I left this flat is because I am eventually going to be doing something similar to that, where this kind of magic yellow and red mist with a bunch of end rods spews out from the top of the tree in each direction. And eventually, as we build our Nether hub, those like magical element things will be spreading across all the different parts of the Nether, leading us to each part of all of our different farms and whatnot. But I've decided to save that for another episode because it's more directly related to the other builds we're going to be making in the Nether, so I didn't see a need to do that today. Now, the other thing I have to fix obviously is the placement of this beacon here. The farm requires a triple beacon in order to run properly, but what I'm most likely going to do is just move it to the inside of the farm or put it in the back here so it's not visible from the front. I also need to clean up all of these chests here, but honestly my favorite part of the build is the way it looks from underneath. Check out all of those branches, man. And down here when we're at the bottom, this really helps to give you a sense of scale of just how big this tree is. Like if we take our character here and we go into F4 and we just zoom out, like look how huge this thing is. And I'd also like to remind you guys that if you're interested in downloading this build for yourself, it is available right now on my Patreon. And for just $10, you get access to over 2 years of work in this hardcore world. So I think it's worth it. But that's going to do it for today, guys. I really hope you have enjoyed this episode. Again, I'm very sorry for being gone for so long. I'm going to do my best to try to make sure this never happens again. I want to thank you all for your support and your patience. But with that, I got to get going because I've got more work to do.